The alarm bells rang through the command center of the Galactic Council's flagship. Red lights flashed everywhere. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in front of the big screen, watching his ships explode one by one. His hands shook as he held the metal rail. "Report!" Kim shouted over the noise. "Sir, we lost 60% of the fleet," said his aide. "The Vorthak ships are too strong. Our weapons barely scratch them." Kim closed his eyes. Another defeat. Another 1,000 lives lost. The war had been going on for 500 years, and they were no closer to winning than when it started. The Vorthak Empire was like a disease that spread across the galaxy. They took planets, killed billions of people, and turned beautiful worlds into dead rocks. Every time the Galactic Council tried to fight back, they lost more ships and more lives. Kim walked to his chair and sat down heavily. His body hurt from old battle wounds. His left arm had metal parts where a Vorthak energy blast had hit him 20 years ago. His face had scars from when his first ship was destroyed. He was 58 years old, but he looked much older. "Send word to the council," Kim said quietly. "Tell them we failed again." The bridge became silent except for the beeping of computers and the sound of broken metal falling. Outside the windows, Kim could see the wreckage of his ships floating in space. Good people had died today. Good people died every day in this war. 3 days later, Kim stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council on the planet Centralis. The hall was huge, with seats for representatives from 300 different alien species. Most of the seats were empty now. Many species had been destroyed by the Vorthak. Others had run away to hide in distant parts of the galaxy. General Park So-min sat next to Kim at the military table. She was younger than Kim, maybe 45, but her black hair was already turning gray from stress. She had lost 3 complete fleets fighting the Vorthak. 3 fleets meant 60,000 soldiers under her command had died. "The situation is hopeless," said Counselor Vex, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. "We have tried everything. Our best weapons, our smartest plans, our bravest soldiers. Nothing works against them." Kim stood up. His voice was tired but strong. "There is one option we have not tried." The hall became quiet. All eyes looked at Kim. "The humans," Kim said. Several aliens made angry sounds. Some laughed. "The humans," said Counselor Thane, whose people looked like giant insects. "They are babies in space. They only joined us 50 years ago. What can they do that we cannot?" Park stood up next to Kim. "Admiral Kim is right. We should ask them for help." "This is crazy talk," said another counselor. "Humans have weak bodies. Their technology is simple. They live on only one planet. How can such a young species help us?" Ambassador Lee Hyun-woo, who had been quiet until now, stood up slowly. He was an older human with kind eyes, but those eyes had seen too much war. "Maybe that is exactly why we should ask them," Lee said. "Sometimes the answer comes from where you do not expect it." Kim nodded. "We have tried everything else. Every weapon, every plan, every alliance. Nothing has worked. The Vorthak are stronger than ever. Yesterday they took the Proxima system. Today they are moving toward the inner worlds. In 6 months, they will reach Centralis itself." The hall was silent. Everyone knew Kim was right. The Vorthak were winning. They had always been winning. "What do you propose?" asked the council leader, an ancient being whose species was so old that no one remembered their real name. "Send Ambassador Lee to Earth," Kim said. "Ask the humans for military help. Let them try what we could not do. And if they say no," asked General Park. "Then we die fighting, same as always," Kim replied. "But maybe they will surprise us." The vote was close. Many counselors thought it was a waste of time. But fear won in the end. Fear of the Vorthak made them try anything, even asking help from humans. Ambassador Lee packed his things that night. He had been to Earth once before, 10 years ago, for a trade meeting. He remembered it as a blue and green world, very beautiful but also very quiet. The humans seemed nice but not very interested in galactic politics. They sold some food and art to other planets, but mostly they kept to themselves. As Lee's ship prepared to leave for Earth, Kim walked to the observation deck of the space station. Through the thick glass, he could see the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorthak were planning their next attack. Somewhere else, human soldiers were probably sleeping in their beds, not knowing that the fate of the galaxy might soon rest in their hands. Park joined him at the window. "Do you really think this will work?" she asked. Kim was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know," he said finally. "But I have seen what happens when species get desperate. Sometimes they find strength they did not know they had." "The humans seem so peaceful," Park said. "They have never fought in a real war, not like this one. How can peaceful people understand what we face?" "Maybe that is the point," Kim said. "We have been fighting for so long that we only think like soldiers. Maybe we need someone who thinks different." In the distance, Lee's ship started its engines and disappeared into the darkness between stars. Kim watched until he could not see it anymore. Then he turned away from the window and walked back to his office, where reports of new Vorthak attacks waited for him on his desk. The war continued. People died. Ships exploded. Planets burned. But for the first time in many years, Kim felt something he had almost forgotten. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Hope. Maybe the humans would say no. Maybe they would laugh at the idea of fighting the mighty Vorthak Empire. But maybe, just maybe, they would surprise everyone. Maybe these young, peaceful humans had something that 500 years of galactic warfare had not been able to find. Kim picked up the first report and began to read. Outside his office, the war went on. The holding cells deep inside Nexus Prime were built to contain the galaxy's most dangerous prisoners. Captain Diane Lee walked down the corridor with her team, their footsteps echoing off metal walls. Behind energy barriers sat 3 Vrexian prisoners, the first living enemies most council members had ever seen up close. "They are beautiful," whispered Corporal Ji-Hai Shin, the team's alien biology expert. "And terrifying." The Vrexians stood nearly 2 meters tall, their bodies made of what looked like living crystal. Light passed through them in strange ways, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. They moved like dancers, every gesture smooth and flowing. But their faces were sharp angles that could cut glass, and their eyes burned with inner fire. "They have not spoken in 2 years, said the prison guard, a nervous Altarian with blue skin. "Not one word. They just stand there watching." Lieutenant Bo-Ram Choi stepped closer to the first cell. The Vrexian inside turned to look at her with those burning eyes. "What do you see when you look at us?" she asked the prisoner. The Vrexian tilted its head. Then, in a voice like wind chimes, it spoke. "I see the young race that asks questions." Every guard in the corridor froze. The prisoner had not spoken in 2 years, but it answered a human in perfect galactic standard language. "Why do your people fight us?" Lieutenant Choi asked. "Fight?" The Vrexian made a sound that might have been laughter. "We do not fight you. We harvest you." Sergeant Min-Ho Jung, the team's intelligence analyst, stepped forward with his recording equipment. "What is the difference?" "You fight because you hate or fear or want something," the second Vrexian said, joining the conversation. "We harvest because it is what we do. A farmer does not fight the wheat." Captain Lee felt a chill run down her spine. "You see us as plants? As crops?" "Not you," the third Vrexian said. "The others, the old races, they have grown soft, like fruit ready to be picked, but you—" It leaned closer to the energy barrier. "You are different. You are still growing." The team spent 6 hours talking to the prisoners. What they learned changed everything about the war. The Vrexians were not monsters. They were not even really conquerors. They were something much stranger and more dangerous. Later, in a secure briefing room, Captain Lee gathered her team around a holographic display. The room was small and cramped compared to the Grand Council chambers, but it felt safer. More human. "Report," Captain Lee said. Sergeant Young activated his datapad. The prisoners confirmed what I suspected from studying the war records. The Vrexians are not one people. They are 7 different groups working together. 7 different groups? Staff Sergeant Wu Jin Han looked confused. But they all look the same. No, Corporal Shin said, pulling up biological scans. Look at the crystal structures. This one has hexagonal patterns. This one has triangular formations. The third has something like snowflake designs. They are as different from each other as humans are from dolphins. Different species? Captain Lee asked. Different castes, Sergeant Young corrected. Like social classes, but built into their biology. The hexagonal ones are rulers. The triangular ones are warriors. The snowflake patterns are workers. And there are 4 more castes we have not seen yet. Lieutenant Choi activated another display. Here is the interesting part. In 500 years of war, the Council has never captured or killed a hexagonal Vrexian. Never even seen one on a battlefield. What does that mean? Wu Jin asked. It means the real leaders have never left their home worlds, Captain Lee said slowly. Everything we have been fighting is middle management. The team stared at the data in silence. Sergeant Young continued his briefing. I studied every peace negotiation attempt in the war records. 47 different tries over 5 centuries. Every single time, the Council was talking to triangular or snowflake Vrexians, workers and soldiers. The negotiations failed because the people at the table had no authority to make decisions. Corporal Shin added her biological analysis. The prisoners mentioned something called the resonance. They would not explain what it means, but their brain scans show unusual activity in crystal formations near what we would call the brainstem. I think it might be some kind of shared consciousness or communication system. A hive mind? Captain Lee asked. Not exactly. More like a military chain of command built into their biology. The lower castes physically cannot disobey the higher castes, but it works both ways. The higher castes need the lower castes to function. Staff Sergeant Wu Jin, who specialized in demolitions and breaking things, leaned forward. So if we cut the connection, the whole system collapses, Captain Lee finished. But first we need to find the real leaders. Lieutenant Choi brought up star charts showing Vrexian territory. The prisoners mentioned their homeworld. They call it the first crystal. Our records show it as Cathara, deep in Vrexian space. No one has ever gotten close to it. Because no one ever tried, Sergeant Young said. Every military strategy focused on stopping Vrexian expansion. Defense, not offense. Build bigger walls, make stronger shields. Fight them at the borders. No one ever thought to strike at the source. Captain Lee studied the tactical displays. Cathara was surrounded by 7 layers of defensive networks. Thousands of ships, orbital platforms, weapon satellites. The most heavily defended world in known space. It is suicide, Wu Jin said quietly. Even if we could get there, how do we find the leaders? How do we cut their connection to the castes? We ask them, Captain Lee said. Her team stared at her. Ask who? Lieutenant Choi said. The prisoners. They have been cooperative so far. More cooperative than 2 years of interrogation by council experts. I think they want to talk to someone who asks the right questions. Captain Lee stood up and paced the small room. Think about it. These 3 have been sitting in cells for 2 years watching the war continue. They know their castes are dying by the thousands, but they cannot disobey their superiors, cannot change the orders they were given. What if they are as trapped as we are? The next day, Captain Lee returned to the prison alone. The 3 Vrexians stood in their cells like living statues. Rainbow, light dancing across the walls. I have a question, she said. The young race always has questions, the first prisoner replied. If someone wanted to speak to your real leaders, the hexagonal caste, how would they do it? The 3 prisoners exchanged looks. Light pulsed between their crystal bodies, some kind of silent communication. Why would the young race want to speak to the first resonance? The second prisoner asked. To end the war. The war cannot end, the third prisoner said. The harvest must continue until all worlds are gathered. What if there was another way? Captain Lee pressed. What if your people could have what they need without destroying everything? The first prisoner moved closer to the energy barrier. The young race thinks it can offer bargains to the first resonance. The young race thinks everyone wants something, even your leaders, even the first resonance. The question is what they really want, and whether there is a way to give it to them without killing everyone else in the galaxy. The prisoners were quiet for a long time. Finally, the first one spoke. The first resonance dwells in the heart chamber beneath the surface of the first crystal. No outsider has ever seen it and lived. The approaches are guarded by the full might of 7 castes. It is impossible. Impossible for the old races, Captain Lee said. But humans are good at impossible things. The prisoner made that wind chime laugh again. The young race is mad. Yes, Captain Lee smiled. We are. Will you help us be mad in the right direction? The 3 Vrexians looked at each other. Light pulsed between them again, faster this time. We will tell you how to reach the first resonance, the first prisoner said finally. But you must promise something. What? When you speak to our true leaders, remember that we are not all the same. Some of us grow tired of the harvest. Some of us dream of different songs than the resonance commands. Captain Lee nodded. I will remember. The countdown to the Omega Protocol showed 50 hours remaining. Captain Lee had the location of the enemy's true leadership and a plan that every military expert in the galaxy would call insane. It was time to brief the council. The human ship moved through space like a ghost. Captain Nam Mi-young stood on the bridge of the HSF Phantom, watching the stars through the front window. Her ship was invisible to all alien sensors. The Vorthak could not see them, hear them, or detect them in any way. How close are we to their home system? Nam asked. Lieutenant Bei Tae-hyun looked at his screen. 2 hours, Captain. The quantum stealth field is working perfectly. We might as well not exist. Nam nodded. She was 32 years old and had been fighting in secret wars for 10 years. Her black hair was tied back in a tight ponytail. Her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. On her belt hung weapons that could cut through any alien armor. The team of 12 soldiers sat in the main room checking their equipment. Each soldier wore a black suit that looked simple but contained technology that would amaze the Galaxy Council. The suits could stop energy blasts, make them invisible, and let them jump higher and run faster than any alien. Sergeant Kang Yejin worked on her medical kit. Inside were medicines that could heal wounds in minutes, and chemicals that could kill. Vorthak soldiers without harming other species. She was quiet and careful, like all good medics. Corporal Oh Seung-ho played with a small device in his hands. It looked like a simple computer, but it could break into any alien system and steal information. Their security is a joke, he said with a smile. I could hack their networks with my eyes closed. Do not get too confident, Nam warned. Confidence kills soldiers. The ship's computer made a soft sound. Captain, said the ship's AI with a woman's voice. We are entering the Vorthak home system, switching to maximum stealth. Nam felt the ship's engines go quiet. Now they were moving on pure momentum, drifting like a piece of space rock. The Phantom was the most advanced ship humans had ever built. It could hide from any sensor and move faster than light without making a sound. There, Bei pointed at the main screen. The Vorthak homeworld. The planet was huge and dark. Cities covered its surface like scars. Massive ships moved around it, like angry insects. This was the heart of the empire that had been killing people for 500 years. Begin scanning, Nam ordered. The ship's sensors, invisible to Vorthak technology, started gathering information. Data flowed across the screens. Numbers, pictures, and maps filled the displays. Captain, Oh said, his voice excited, you need to see this. Nam walked over to his station. On his screen was a map of the Vorthak communication network. Lines of light connected every ship, every planet, and every commander in their empire. It is all connected, Oh explained. Every order, every message, every command goes through this network. If we destroy it, their entire military falls apart. Nam studied the map. Where's the main control center? Oh pointed to a massive space station orbiting the homeworld. There. That station controls everything, but look at this. He pressed a button, and the screen showed new information. The network is not just for talking. It controls their weapons, their shields, even their ship engines. Without it, they are helpless. Bay looked up from his scanner. Captain, I am picking up something strange. The Vorthak leaders are meeting in that station right now. All 3 Supreme Commanders are there. Nam's eyes grew wide. In 500 years of war, no one had ever seen all 3 Supreme Commanders in the same place. They were the most powerful beings in the Vorthak Empire, and they never met face to face. What are they talking about? Nam asked. O's fingers danced over his computer. I am breaking into their communication system now. This might take a few minutes. The team waited. Outside the ship, Vorthak patrol ships flew past, never knowing that 12 human soldiers watched them. The irony was not lost on Nam. The most feared military force in the galaxy could not see enemies that were right in front of them. Got it, O said suddenly. Captain, you need to hear this. A voice filled the bridge. It was deep and harsh, speaking in the Vorthak language. The ship's computer translated the words into English. The war has been profitable for 500 years, the voice said. We have harvested resources from 1,000 worlds. Our population remains strong through constant conflict. Why should we end it now? Another voice answered. Because we are running out of enemies. Soon we will have conquered everything. Then what? A third voice, older and more cruel, laughed. Then we create new enemies. We divide our own people and let them fight each other. War is not about victory. War is about control. Nam felt sick. The Vorthak were not fighting to win. They were fighting to stay in power. They had been keeping the war going on purpose, letting billions of people die so they could remain in control of their empire. Record everything, Nam ordered. The Galaxy Council needs to hear this. O nodded and saved the conversation. There is more, Captain. They are planning something big. A final attack on the Council worlds. They want to destroy just enough planets to keep the war interesting. Nam had heard enough. She called her team together in the main room. The 12 soldiers sat in a circle, their faces serious. We have found the enemy's weakness, Nam said. Their entire empire depends on one communication network. If we destroy it, they cannot coordinate their forces. But we also discovered something worse. They are keeping this war going on purpose. They do not want to win. They want to fight forever. The soldiers looked at each other. They had prepared for a difficult mission, but this was worse than they had imagined. What are your orders, Captain? Asked Sergeant Choi Woo-jin, the team's weapons expert. Nam looked at each of her soldiers. They were the best fighters humanity had ever produced. They had trained for years for a mission like this. Now they had 5 hours to end a war that had lasted 5 centuries. We are going to do something that has never been done before, Nami said. We are going to destroy the Vorthak Empire from the inside. Not their ships, not their armies, but their ability to control anything. She stood up and walked to the weapon locker. Check your equipment. We move in 1 hour. By this time tomorrow, either the war is over or we are all dead. The soldiers began their final preparations. Outside, the Vorthak homeworld turned slowly in space, unaware that its doom was sitting invisible in the darkness, waiting to strike. Captain Nam Mi-young pressed the button on her wrist. All teams begin operation. The human soldiers vanished from their ship in flashes of blue light. Personal teleportation devices moved them instantly across the Vorthak system. In 1 second, they were on the Phantom. In the next second, they were inside enemy ships and stations. Nam appeared in a dark hallway of the main communication station. Her suit's computer showed her exactly where to go. Red arrows pointed the way to the control center. She moved like a shadow, her footsteps making no sound. 2 Vorthak guards stood at the end of the hallway. They were huge creatures with thick armor and energy weapons. They looked dangerous, but they could not see Nam. Her suit made her invisible. To their eyes and their sensors, Nam walked past them like they were not there. She placed a small device on the wall behind them. The device would explode in exactly 3 hours and destroy this section of the station. But by then, the real damage would already be done. On the other side of the system, Corporal Oh Shung-ho materialized inside the main computer room. Massive machines filled the space, humming with power. These computers controlled the communication network for the entire Vorthak Empire. Oh smiled as he looked at the alien technology. "Too easy," he whispered. He plugged his device into the main computer. Immediately, his virus began spreading through the network. The virus was invisible to Vorthak security systems. It would hide for 2 hours, then begin changing their orders and commands. Lieutenant Bae Tae-hyun appeared on top of a weapons platform orbiting the homeworld. His job was to create confusion while the others worked. He pulled out his rifle and looked through the scope. One shot destroyed a communication dish. Another shot disabled a sensor array. Alarms began ringing across the platform. Vorthak soldiers ran everywhere looking for an enemy they could not find. Bae was already gone, teleporting to his next target. Hour 2. The virus began its work. Across the Vorthak Empire, ship computers received false orders. A fleet attacking a human colony was told to return home immediately. Another fleet was ordered to attack their own supply ships. Supreme Commander Vrak stood in his control room watching reports come in. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Why are our ships acting crazy?" His aide, a smaller Vorthak with nervous eyes, looked at his screen. "Sir, there are reports of equipment failures across the fleet. Ships are receiving conflicting orders." "Fix it!" Vrak shouted. But it could not be fixed. O's virus was too smart. Every time the Vorthak tried to clean their computers, the virus hid in a different place. It was like trying to catch smoke with their hands. Nam had reached the station's main control center. Inside, dozens of Vorthak technicians worked at their stations trying to understand why their network was failing. They never saw the human woman who walked among them, invisible and silent. Nam placed 3 more devices around the room. These were not bombs. They were signal jammers that would cut off all communication when activated. She saved the activation for later. Sergeant Kang Ye-jin materialized in a Vorthak prison ship. Her mission was different from the others. She was here to save prisoners. The ship held thousands of aliens who had been captured during the war. Kang moved through the prison, levels unlocking doors with her hacking device. Confused prisoners stepped out of their cells, not understanding what was happening. Kang left them a simple message in their own languages. "Run. You are free." Hour 3. The chaos was spreading. Vorthak ships began firing on each other as the virus sent false emergency signals. A massive battleship received orders to destroy what it thought was an enemy ship. The target was actually another Vorthak vessel. Supreme Commander Thex watched his fleet tear itself apart. "This is impossible," he said. "Our security is perfect. No one can hack our systems." His second-in-command looked worried. "Sir, maybe we should call for help from the other commanders." "I tried," Thex said angrily. "I cannot reach them. The communication network is completely broken." What Thex did not know was that Nam's team had cut the connections between all 3 Supreme Commanders. For the first time in centuries, the Vorthak leaders could not talk to each other. Lieutenant Han Da-un had teleported into the Central Intelligence Building on the homeworld. Her job was to steal information and spread it to Vorthak civilians. The files she found made her sick. The Vorthak leaders had records of every atrocity they had committed. Lists of destroyed planets, numbers of killed civilians, plans for future wars. All of it was stored in their computers like business reports. Han copied everything and began broadcasting it to every Vorthak citizen. Soon the entire population would know what their leaders had really been doing. Hour 4. The Vorthak Empire was falling apart from the inside. Ships abandoned their posts as crews learned the truth about their leaders. Entire planets declared independence from the Empire. 500 years of suppressed anger exploded all at once. Supreme Commander Kral tried desperately to reach his armies. "Someone respond," he screamed into his communicator. "I am your Supreme Commander." But his armies could not hear him. His communication systems were dead. His computer showed only error messages. His own guards were starting to look at him with suspicious eyes. Nam activated her signal jammers. The main communication station went completely silent. No signals in or out. The heart of the Vorthak network stopped beating. Sergeant Choi Woo-jin had a different mission. He appeared in the weapons storage areas of 3 different military bases. His job was simple: destroy everything. His explosives turned massive weapon stockpiles into balls of fire. Without weapons, the Vorthak military could not fight back against the rebellions. O's virus reached its final stage. It began erasing all military records and battle plans. Centuries of strategic information vanished in seconds. Even if the Vorthak fixed their communication systems, they would not remember how to coordinate their forces. Hour 5. The end came faster than anyone expected. Without communication, weapons, or loyal troops, the Vorthak Empire simply collapsed. Ships surrendered to local rebels. Planets declared their freedom. Military bases were overrun by their own civilian workers. Supreme Commander Vrak made one last desperate attempt to save his power. He tried to activate a secret weapon that could destroy entire star systems. When he pressed the button, nothing happened. O's virus had disabled that too. Nam stood on the bridge of the Phantom, watching the Vorthak homeworld through the window. Fires burned in the cities as people celebrated their freedom. The palace of the Supreme Commanders was surrounded by crowds of angry civilians. "Mission complete," she said into her communicator. "The Vorthak Empire no longer exists." Her team began teleporting back to the ship. One by one, they appeared on the bridge, tired but victorious. They had done the impossible. 12 soldiers had ended a 500-year war in 5 hours. Bay looked at his captain with respect. "How did you know it would work?" Nam smiled for the first time in days. "Because we did not try to beat them in battle. We made them beat themselves." The ship's computer chimed softly. "Captain, we are receiving a message from the Galaxy Council." "Put it through," Nam said. Admiral Kim's voice filled the bridge. He sounded confused and amazed. "Human ship, we are receiving reports that the Vorthak Empire has surrendered. Entire fleets are laying down their weapons. Can you confirm?" Nam looked at her team. They were just 12 people, but they had changed the galaxy forever. "Confirmed, Admiral," she said. "The war is over." In the silence that followed, Nam could almost hear the sound of peace returning to the galaxy. Somewhere, children who had never known a world without war were about to discover what safety felt like. It was a good sound. The Phantom turned away from the Vorthak homeworld and began its journey home. Behind them, the fires of revolution continued to burn, lighting the way to a new future. 3 days after the war ended, Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in his office, staring at reports he could not believe. Every screen showed the same impossible news. The Vorthak Empire was completely gone. 500 years of war had ended in 5 hours. General Park So-min walked into the office without knocking. Her face was pale with shock. "Kim, I just received confirmation from the outer sectors. Every Vorthak military base has surrendered or been destroyed by rebels. Their entire fleet is scattered. Most ships are asking for protection from their own people." Kim sat down heavily in his chair. "How is this possible? We fought them for centuries with everything we had. 12 humans did what our entire alliance could not do." "That is not the strangest part," Park said. She handed him a data pad. "Look at this. The humans recorded everything the Vorthak leaders said. They were keeping the war going on purpose. They never wanted to win." Kim read the translated conversations. His hands began to shake with anger. All those people who died, all those worlds destroyed. It was all for nothing? "Not for nothing," Park said quietly. "For their power. They were using the war to control their own people." A soft chime came from Kim's desk. "Admiral," his aide said over the communicator, "Ambassador Lee is returning from Earth. He wants to meet with you immediately." "Send him in," Kim said. Ambassador Lee Hyun-woo walked into the office. He looked different somehow. His eyes held secrets and his face was serious in a way Kim had never seen before. "Admiral General," Lee said with a small bow, "I bring greetings from Earth and an invitation." "An invitation?" Park asked. "The human president wants to meet with the Galaxy Council leaders." There are things we need to discuss about humanity's place in the galaxy. Kim stood up. What things? And how did they do it? How did 12 soldiers end a war that killed billions? Lee was quiet for a moment. That is exactly what President Lim Sang-wook wants to explain. But he says it must be done in person, on Earth. 2 weeks later, Kim, Park, and 50 other Galaxy Council leaders stood in a meeting room in the human capital city of Seoul. The room was simple compared to the grand halls they were used to, but something about it felt more serious, more real. President Lim Sang-wook was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes that seemed to see everything. Next to him stood Dr. Shin Hee-young, a woman with a scientist's careful way of speaking. "Thank you for coming," President Lim said. "I know you have questions about what happened to the Vorthak Empire. I am here to give you answers, but some of those answers will be difficult to accept." Kim leaned forward. "How did you do it? Your soldiers, your technology, your strategy, none of it should have been possible." President Lim smiled sadly. "The first thing you need to understand is that we lied to you. Humans are not a young species. We are much older than you think." The alien leaders looked at each other with confusion. General Park spoke for all of them. "What do you mean?" Dr. Shin stood up and pressed a button. The walls of the room became screens showing star maps and ancient pictures. "Humanity did not evolve on Earth," she said. "We came there as refugees 50,000 years ago, fleeing the collapse of our first galactic empire." The room erupted in shocked voices. Several aliens stood up, talking loudly in their own languages. "Impossible," said Councillor Vex. "We would have records of such an empire." "You do," Dr. Shin said calmly. "You call them the Ancients, the civilization that left ruins on 1,000 worlds but mysteriously vanished. That was us." President Lim raised his hand for silence. "Our first empire fell because we became too peaceful, too trusting. When the enemies came, we were not ready to fight. Most of humanity was destroyed. The survivors fled to a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy." Kim felt like the ground was moving under his feet. "Earth? Yes. We spent 50,000 years on that one world, rebuilding our civilization and learning from our mistakes. We swore that we would never again be caught unprepared for war." Dr. Shin pressed another button. The screen showed human soldiers training, human weapons being tested, human ships being built in secret. "For 5 decades we watched your war with the Vorthak. We studied every battle, analyzed every defeat, and prepared for the day we might need to fight." "But why did you hide?" Park asked. "Why pretend to be peaceful farmers and artists?" President Lim's expression grew sad. "Because we learned something important during our 50,000 years on Earth. War is not something to be proud of. It is a tool, like fire, necessary sometimes, but dangerous always. We did not want to be known as warriors." "But you are warriors," Kim said. "The best warriors in the galaxy." "Yes," President Lim agreed. "And that frightens us." Dr. Shin began explaining the science. "Human brains are different from yours because of how we evolved on Earth. Our planet was full of dangerous predators. For millions of years, humans had to hunt and be hunted. This changed how we think." She showed brain scans on the screen. "We process threats faster than other species. We can make complex plans while under extreme stress. We see patterns that others miss. Most importantly, we never stop looking for weaknesses in our enemies." "Is that how you defeated the Vorthak, so?"
"Quickly?"
asked Councillor Thane. Captain Nam Mi-young, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. "We did not defeat the Vorthak," she said. "We showed them the truth about their own leaders. The Vorthak people defeated themselves. We activated a holographic display. The Empire was like a house built on lies. All we did was remove a few key supports and let it collapse under its own weight." Kim understood now. "You did not win through superior force. You won through superior thinking." "Exactly," President Lim said. "We are not stronger than the Vorthak. We are not smarter than you. But we understand warfare in a way that peaceful species cannot. We think like predators because that is what we are." The room was silent as the alien leaders absorbed this information. Finally, Kim asked the question everyone was thinking. What happens now? What do you want from us? President Lim looked at each alien leader. We want to help rebuild the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire is gone, but it left behind damage that will take generations to heal. We have the skills to help with that healing. And in return? Park asked. We want to be accepted for what we are, President Lim said. Not as young farmers who got lucky, but as an ancient species that chose to help instead of conquer. We want to be partners, not rulers. Dr. Shin added, we also want to teach other species how to defend themselves. The galaxy cannot depend on 12 human soldiers forever. Next time there is a threat, every world should be ready to fight. Kim stood up slowly. His old body ached, but his mind was clearer than it had been in years. President Lim, I have one more question. Yes? The Vorthak were not the only aggressive species in the galaxy. There are others out there, beyond our borders. What happens when they learn that the Vorthak are gone? What happens when they decide to take their place? President Lim's kind eyes became hard as steel. Then they will learn the same lesson the Vorthak learned. The galaxy is under our protection now. Anyone who tries to harm innocent people will discover what happens when they wake up sleeping dragons. Captain Nam stepped forward. But we hope it does not come to that. War should always be the last choice, not the first. General Park looked around the room at her fellow leaders. I think I speak for everyone when I say we accept your partnership. The galaxy needs protectors, and you have proven you are the best protectors we could ask for. President Lim bowed deeply. Then let us begin building a better future, together. As the meeting ended and the alien leaders prepared to return to their worlds, Kim lingered behind. He approached Captain Nam, who was packing her equipment. Captain, he said, I have fought in wars for 30 years. I have seen the worst things that beings can do to each other. But today, I learned something new. Nam looked at him with respectful attention. What is that, Admiral? The strongest warriors are not those who love fighting. They are those who understand its true cost and choose their battles wisely. Nam smiled. That is the most important lesson humanity learned during our 50,000 years of exile. We never forgot the price of being unprepared for war, but we also never forgot the price of war itself. Kim nodded and walked toward his ship. Behind him, the humans began their work of helping to heal a galaxy that had bled for 5 centuries. The war was over, but the peace was just beginning. In the distance, Earth turned slowly in space, no longer hiding its true nature. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy not as conquerors, but as guardians. It was a heavy responsibility, but they were ready for it. They had been preparing for 50,000 years.